Murder in uniform. A woman sworn to defend her country, found lifeless in a place that should have promised safety. Her name was Naomi Cheney. A Women's Army Corps officer stationed in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The year written in reports is 1943, but if you listen closely, it could be 2025. Because the story of Naomi Cheney is not just history. It is a mirror, a shadow that still stretches into America today. And the most disturbing part? Investigators allegedly knew who killed her, but refused to say the name. Think about that for a moment. A young woman, disciplined, trained, patriotic enough to put on a uniform at a time when women in the military were barely accepted, murdered. And silence. Silence from the very institution that asked her for loyalty. Silence from investigators sworn to justice. Silence that still feels like a wound in the heart of this country. The hook in this case is not just Naomi's death. It is the secrecy that wrapped around her like a second burial. No press conference naming a suspect. No court trial with testimonies of who last saw her alive. Just whispers in the barracks, clippings in local papers, and families who carried unanswered questions from generation to generation. And when you trace the silence back, you realize it was not just about one woman. It was about what America chooses to protect, and what America chooses to bury. Sioux Falls in the 1940s was not a city known for scandal. It was the Midwest heartbeat of America, where neighbors knew each other by name, where factory workers and farmers mingled at diners, where small-town decency was a source of pride. But in February of 1943, the local headlines froze that small-town charm. A Women's Army Corps officer, dead. The Army was supposed to symbolize order, discipline, protection. Yet in Naomi's case, it became the symbol of silence, deflection, maybe even complicity. Old newspaper archives mention her sparingly. Female officer found slain, some lines read, tucked in between war bulletins from overseas. No photographs of Naomi smiling in her uniform. No humanizing detail of her childhood in South Dakota, no obituary rich with the warmth of who she really was. Instead, Naomi Cheney's memory was flattened into a statistic, a case without a conclusion. And yet, if you sit in Sioux Falls today and speak to some of the older families, fragments of the story still linger. They'll tell you about how whispers traveled through kitchens and church pews. How soldiers stationed nearby were quietly reassigned. How people suspected Naomi knew something she wasn't supposed to know, or that she had spoken up when silence was demanded. And above all, they'll tell you about the suffocating message: some lives were not meant to be avenged if avenging them meant shaking the wrong institution. The official record suggests investigators had their suspicions. They knew the killer. They may have even had the evidence. But the killer was never named, never arrested, never tried. Why? Theories are many, but each points to one uncomfortable truth: the Army in 1943 was not ready to publicly face scandal involving women in uniform. Female officers were barely accepted, often viewed as distractions or even threats to male authority. Protecting the image of the institution may have mattered more than protecting justice for Naomi Cheney. This is where Naomi's story bleeds into today. Because how many times have we seen echoes of this? How many families in modern America have buried their daughters, sisters, mothers, women in service, and then faced silence? How many times has the name of the accused been blurred out to preserve discipline, while the victim's name is left in the open air, stained forever with the word murdered? Picture Naomi on that February day. A uniform freshly pressed, boots laced, determination etched into her face. Maybe she wrote a letter home that morning. Maybe she promised a friend they'd meet after duty hours. She was not expecting her name to become a ghost. But somewhere, someone decided her story could be erased, or worse, covered. Here is where the intrigue deepens. Archival fragments suggest Naomi was not just any officer. She was outspoken. She had written letters to her superiors questioning how women were being treated in the Corps. In an era when men dominated the chain of command, Naomi was stepping into forbidden ground. Did she stumble on something she shouldn't have? Did she threaten the reputation of a commanding officer who decided she needed to be silenced? Or was she simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the army chose convenience over justice? We will never know the full truth, but the refusal to name her killer is itself an indictment. Because silence in a murder is not just absence of justice. It is complicity. It says, we know. We could tell you. But we won't. Now fast forward to America today. Think of the families still waiting for answers from military bases when women vanish or turn up dead. Think of Fort Hood. Think of the case of Vanessa Guillen, her brutal death, and the stonewalling that followed before the truth came out. Different names, different years, but the same chilling script. Naomi Cheney's murder in Sioux Falls was not just a crime, it was a blueprint for how silence could protect institutions while destroying families. And so we return to the feminine subjugation embedded in this story. Naomi's life and death expose a paradox. America asked women to wear uniforms, to serve, to stand shoulder to shoulder with men in the greatest conflict of the century. But when they were violated, hurt, or murdered, America often refused to give them equal standing in justice. Their loyalty was demanded, but their lives were negotiable. Their silence was preferred to their survival. And that is not just Naomi's story. It is a recurring wound that stretches across decades. What is striking about Naomi's murder is the daily effect it still whispers. Walk through Sioux Falls and you will not see a memorial to her. Drive past the bases where women still serve, and you will not see her name etched in stone. Yet the silence is there, passed invisibly through policies, unspoken warnings, mothers telling their daughters, be careful if you enlist. That caution is Naomi's ghost speaking across generations. Every twist in Naomi's story is a lesson America must reckon with. When investigators protect institutions more than victims, the cost is public trust. When killers are shielded by uniforms, the message to every woman in uniform is, you may serve, but you are not safe. And when justice is silenced, violence is invited to repeat itself. Imagine if Naomi's killer had been named in 1943. Imagine if a court-martial had been public, if the army had shown America that no one, even in uniform, was above justice. It would have sent a shockwave, a statement that women mattered, that silence would not be tolerated. Instead, the opposite message was engraved into the culture, secrets are safer than truth. And that message lived on. There is another cliffhanger here, one that gnaws at anyone who reads Naomi's story deeply enough. If investigators allegedly knew the killer, does that mean the killer lived free? Did he return to civilian life, marry, raise children, and die peacefully while Naomi's family carried grief? Did he live in Sioux Falls, passing neighbors who never knew? Or was he quietly reassigned overseas, his name buried under military paperwork, shielded by secrecy until his death? Every scenario is disturbing, every scenario an insult to justice. But this is also where the story pivots into hope, if we let it. Because Naomi Cheney's silence does not have to stay silence. Her story can be spoken, her name can be remembered, her injustice can fuel the demand for change. The lesson is that America cannot afford to keep choosing silence when the cost is women's safety. The army that buried Naomi's truth is not the army we need today. The America that excused her killer cannot be the America we raise our daughters in. If Naomi's story teaches us anything, it is that justice delayed is justice denied, but justice erased is a crime against the living. Her murder reminds us that safety in uniform cannot be a gendered privilege. It must be a promise. Her silence reminds us that when institutions protect themselves instead of people, they rot from the inside. And her memory tells us that America's conscience is only as strong as the justice it gives to its most vulnerable. So the next time you hear of a woman in uniform who dies under mysterious circumstances, remember Naomi Cheney. Remember Sioux Falls, 1943. Remember the investigators who knew but would not say. And ask yourself, if justice was denied then, will we allow it to be denied now? Naomi Cheney's ghost is not confined to the 1940s. She lives in every headline of cover-ups, every tear of a mother burying her daughter without answers, every whisper of women warning each other not to trust the system. But her story can also live in our voices, in our refusal to be silent, in our demand that justice is not optional. The killer may never be named. The army may never open the files. But Naomi Cheney's story can name something bigger, America's choice between silence and truth. And that choice is made not just once, but every day. Her murder is not just an old case. It is a mirror. It is a warning. And if we are brave enough, it is a call to break the silence.